So I take it there's been a um little question popped up.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Right. Okay. That's fine. I can just answer that. Right. Okay. So obviously we're going to be doing the sycamore bag. The first bit I'm just going to talk you through is how we can alter this slightly to make the bag slightly different. So if I get the bag, as it stands, it's got these curves here, and a lot of people are saying they're a bit intimidated by how tight that curve is when if they want to top stitch it. So I know a lot of you like top stitching the finish around the edge. Now, personally, I must admit, I've been sewing for a long time. The third one I did, I decided I'm not top stitching around that edge because when I actually went around this part here, it was fine. But when I did this part here, top stitch all the way around, my top stitching was like half an inch down because I couldn't control the tightness of this. Now, someone asked me recently, I'm not going to name that person, they said, can we alter the bag? So I'm going to show you to alter how to alter the bag. So you see this part here, we can actually eliminate this if you wanted to. So we can actually make it straight and flat. So it's just the same level here on these two sides, and it's nice and one straight line basically, rather than a sharp inverted curve. So I'm going to talk you through that. But also someone said, can they make this straight as well? So then it will be a more narrower bag. So you can make that straight. That's simple and easy to do on the actual pattern piece. But another person I was speaking to inside the family, not anything to do with Fred's gang, we were actually talking about, can we make this deeper, not have the zipper bridge, and actually make an actual zip pocket. So I'm just going to quickly talk you through that part as well. Okay, so you're going to stick your templates for your main outer bag together. Ignore this one at the moment. So if we were to make the sides with no curves, what you're going to have to do is extend this edge here. So you're going to have to stick this onto another couple of pieces of A4 paper. And you're going to have to basically extend this line perfectly straight with a rule or quarters rule. And then you're just going to have to go across there and then obviously stick that piece into that bit there. Or you can do it before you cut out the templates. So that will mean that that inverted curve won't be there. So that's a thing if you are one of those people that like to really top stitch all the way around. You can actually not do what I did and be half an inch away from the edge on your top stitching, because I can tell you something, even under with a sleeve arm, it was a struggle going around that curve there. Hence why I only top stitch on those two sides on the main finished bag. But if you can top stitch around, fair play to it. And I even tried turning the bag inside out for top stitching, you know how we sometimes do. It still wouldn't work properly. It was all over the place. The other thing is with this part here, you might as well just go back to the on the go bag. If you're going to put this curve in and this part in, so this is all filled up, you might as well go back to the on the go bag, because believe it or not, this is near enough the on the go shape, but it's got this extra bit here. It is slightly taller than the small on the go bag. So I'm just saying, if you want just this all blanked out and it's like got fabric in it, you might as well just go back to the on you go bag as it is. So if you want to do what the one person said and add a slip pocket, you would make this full, this section here full, and this section here full, and then you will print off this again. And then you can actually curve this down a little bit more. So I personally will go an inch lower here, but keep this part here as it is, and then draw a square. So I'm going to draw this on so you guys can get a better idea. So always use the quarters rule. You've got your markings, so you can go from a straight edge, line it up with the outer edge, draw down so you've got a straight line. And then you're going to measure down from that curve about 1 inch. And you'll see that it actually generates a square. Now, if I just zoom in a bit. Okay, so you've got where you got basically where it meets. You're going to have to find something that's curved that mimics kind of that curve. Now, personally, if you've got a full a neat one of those will be ideal. Now, mine's a bit wonky, so I won't use that, but I will use this. And what you're doing is just basically matching up the edge to that edge there, where you've drawn those two lines, curve it round, and then you've got the basic curvature that is actually there, and it's near enough spot on with the amount. Now, I've gone over because your hand is quite wide, and because normally when you have an outside slip pocket, you normally put your umbrella in it, or if you put what's it called, mobile phones, or even a drinks bottle. But if you like a steeper one, you don't need that line there. You can probably just go from there if you wanted to. So it's personal choice. This is if you want an outside slip pocket, but you will need to change your curvature. So that could be your curvature there. Now this will go on if I'm going to draw on my pattern here. So pretend I've got one main body fully here, and then I will basically make a separate template for the outer slip pocket. And now if I was doing an outer slip pocket, I would obviously cut away whatever section that is there, and then I would basically put this out of my outer fabric. If you want to do your patchwork on this one, you can do. Obviously this one will have to be your plain fabric, and then you will need some lining fabric, and then you will just basically sew those together, sew around that curved edge there, and then you will put this on top. Once you've sewed around those two pieces, you will put this on top of your normal fabric, which will be your main body, and then you've got a slip pocket there, so you can do that with that as well. So that is another alteration you can do, as well as you can do the main body. Personally, if you are going to do the full main body and not have the slip pocket, I personally would only use that main body for the actual I would go to the On You Go bag and just use that template. The other thing is people are put off by these grommets. They've read the instructions in tier 3 and they are a bit scared. So the other alternative that you can do is these. Let's undo this. So you'll still sew the bag together as per normal, if whichever way you wanted to do it. And if I just show you, you'll need 4 of these, and they're anchors. And obviously they just slip over the edge. Obviously mine won't go down because it's bunched up there. You will have to hammer that a bit, and you might have to cut a bit of the fleece away, so you've got a bit less fleece in that section there. But you can actually have those on all 4 edges, and then just basically carry on using the O-rings with the actual screws and attach them on afterwards. But just remember, like I've taught you previously, recently in the Press-Gang group, you need to put some glue into the channel, and you need to pop the screws in and leave that 72 hours before you actually connect your straps to it. So they are the ways I personally would change this bag if I was doing it for myself or for any customers that I was making it for. Is everybody happy with that?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, no, it just means that you can change it to however you want it to be, and you can patchwork is there for you to change it for making it more unique to you. But if you want to go even one step further, you can alter the pattern. I will be doing some pattern alteration classes within Fred's Gang coming up next year because I have actually got a few ideas of where I'm going to teach you guys how to change a few things. Right, okay, so let's get making the bag. I'm just going to take my hoodie off. Right, okay, so you would have already, most of you, I'm going to say, would have already done the actual cutting out. I know some of you haven't, that's fine. You're just watching as well. So we're going to start off here. We're going to hopefully end up making the zipper bridge to around about 26, number 26 step. And then we are going to do one of the handles. So basically, you know how to do the handle. And then tomorrow is quite an intense day when it comes to making the bag and putting the actual grommets on. Right, so let's grab the base. I've got my main outer base, and on the wrong side, I've got my interfacing attached, which is in the seam allowance. And then I've got my Deckerville here, which is not into the seam allowance. You don't need Deckerville heavy, but I use Deckerville heavy, and I have mentioned Deckerville heavy in the pattern. You can use Deckerville light, but if you're using Deckerville light, you need to have the plastic base. So that's the plastic canvas that came in some of your kits. This stuff, they use it in tapestry. It reminds me of schools use it. It's got little holes in it. So you'll need some of that if you're only using a thin Deckerville. If you want to make it heavy and you've only got thin Deckerville, you need to double up your Deckerville. So you've got 2 layers of Deckerville to make it Deckerville heavy. Right, okay, so I'm just going to grab my other portable, which is a lot smaller. So on both of the sides, you're going to measure in, and you're going to measure in 3/8 of an inch. I will show you these next steps, and then I will stop sewing and let you guys catch up if you are actually sewing, guys. So you don't need to sew at the same time. Oh. Okay, so 3/8 of an in, and you're just going to draw a line. Okay, you're just going to draw a line on each side of the small sides. We're going to call these stop and starts marks. So the next thing we're going to do is find the center of both of those 2 long edges. And put those in half. And I'm just going to lightly snip into the seam allowance. Okay, so I've got 2 snip marks. And then I'm just going to grab one of my main outer panels. So you will either have your patchwork on yours or you won't have your patchwork. Totally up to you. Bear with me. There you go. Okay, right, okay, so you either have your patchwork or non-patchwork. Right, some people are coming in, so I'm just bringing them into the group. So you would either have your patchwork or non-patchwork, totally up to you. If you're doing a non-patchwork bag, you need 3/4 of a meter that measures 56 inches wide fabric. So just bear that in mind. If you're using quarters weight cotton, you're going to have a meter of fabric. If you're using PU or vinyl or whatever you want to call it, you're going to have 3/4 of a meter. And then on the back, once again, just like the Deckerville, but this time it's fusible fleece or whatever stabilizer. So if you're using Laura's Stick and Sew, you can put that on. You can use stick and sew. You can use Decaville light if you want, not Decaville heavy. I'm advising not to put foam because if you are going to do the grommets, the foam is a little bit too thick for the grommets that I've supplied. So you're gonna have your interfacing and you're gonna have it out your seam allowance. Now, if you weren't there last night in the actual Zoom, you will notice my actual fleece is generally about half an inch away from the edge. I say it should be 3/8 of an inch away from the edge. However, my machine, bye Michael. Um, however, my machine doesn't cope at the moment. It needs another good service with the fleece actually being in the seam. So I'm cutting it a bit further away from the edge. So it should technically be 3/8 of an inch away from the edge. And but you know your machines, so make sure you know how much thickness you can put through. Personally, my machine needs at least half an inch away. And then you can fuse your fusible fleece into the center. So you've got these two bits here. That's where your sides of your bags are. So you are still going to be using this in this part. So when you put it together, you're not just folding it to where the this part is, you're actually folding it together here and finding the center. So you're going to find the center of that bottom row and snip it into the seam allowance. Pop that right side facing up, either with your patchwork or non-patchwork, depending on what you're doing. And you're going to flip this face, right side facing down. So it's right side, and you're going to match up the two centers. Excuse me if I keep coughing, I do apologise. And you're just going to clip. And personally, just try and keep those lines that you just drew on the actual base in view. Okay, so from that mark, so we're not sewing on this section here or this section here, but from that mark, your needle's going to start off right in that line, 3/8 of an inch away from this edge. You're going to reverse your stitch, well, go forward a few stitches, then go back, and then you're going to sew and you're going to finish right on that mark on this edge here. So we need these bits here blank, so they've got no stitching whatsoever in them. So let me just go to the other camera and then I'll explain the next bit. So I've got my walking foot on. I've got a size 16 needle because I'm using PU and it is going to get a bit thicker. And I'm using a stitch length, a standard stitch length that could be about 2.4 to 2.5. And we're just going to start off on that mark. So I always lift, I don't know if you can see me doing this, I always lift up the front of my walking foot so I can see if I'm getting my needle right in that mark. I'm going to go 2 or 3 stitches forward and then I'm going to reverse back 2 or 3 stitches. So, and then I'll reverse back. I'm doing it slow because I don't want to go past that mark. You do not want to go past those marks, guys. Okay, and then you're going to go using a stitch width of 3/8 of an inch as your seam allowance. You're going to sew to the last other mark. Okay, and then you're going to reverse your stitch. And then you're going to pull it out. Right, okay, so I've sewn from there to there. Now, if I just zoom in, no, wrong way. Okay, so where that marking is to that stitch line, you're going to snip all the way through all the layers. So you've got all the layers, and you're going to do that on both of them. Okay. And then you're going to go ahead and attach the other side. So I'm just going to do that while you're catching up. So I'm going to stop the recording. How do I stop recording? I'm going to spare with me, guys. There, pause. Right, okay, so we're moving on to the top stitching. Let me just go to the other camera. There you go. Right, okay, so in the pattern, I don't know if you noticed, it's not very clear, but I actually, where the snip is, I actually bring it out so I can identify where I need to sew on my top stitching, because just like we did with this, where we stopped sewing, we need to actually do the same with the top stitching as well, so not sew in these parts here. So all I do is flip that seam from this body going inwards and then just bring that top seam out. What we're wanting is this to actually go this way, so we're going to have to do a bit of manhandling on the sewing machine, but at the moment we're just going to basically just let it flip wherever it wants to go. Going to bring out that one as well, and then you're just going to do the other ones. Okay, so when I'm at my sewing machine, I'm going to make sure both of my seams underneath are pointing towards the base, and I'm going to start top stitching from where that little flip sticks out, so we're not sewing on that section there, and I'm doing it 1/8 of an inch away from here, so 1/8 of an inch away on this edge. And I'm going to reverse my stitch at the start and at the end. So if you're one of these people that don't like reverse stitching, you can make sure your thread is quite long when you start off, and then you can pull it through to this side and tie it off if you want to. So that's personal choice, but I'm just using Gutermann thread, and I'm going to top stitch it because I don't like pulling off Gutermann thread. So I'm making sure my needle is down in that position where that flip sticks out. I'm going to knock my stitch length up to a stitch length number 4 because it is getting a little bit bulky in that area there. And I can get Right, okay, so making sure I've got that little flap still sticking out. I'm going to put my needle down 1/8 of an inch away from that edge. Roll it up this side and make sure I'm just stitching a few inches at a time to make sure my actual seam is pointing towards the base here. So I'm going to go a few stitches and then I'm going to reverse my stitch, but just take your reversing a bit slow. And as you can see, I'm just adjusting it as I go. Okay, it will be a bit fiddly because I can guarantee your seams will want to be going towards the main outer front and back panels, your main body panels. Just like I say, do a bit at a time. Stop where you come to one of those little slips and just basically reverse stitch. Okay, and it should be, I'll show you on here, your seam should be going towards the Deckerville side. So you're going to do the other side. I'll do the other side. Go a few stitches. And then finish where that little flap is that you've cut out and moved to the front, and reverse your stitch or tie it off if you want to. So it should end up looking like that. And then if you flip it over, you'll see the seam pointing inwards. So you're going to have to go into the where those little slip bits are and bring those back through to the actual wrong side. And they should be like a T shape at the bottom and on the top. Okay, so I'm just going to press pause and let you guys. Right, okay, so you would have top stitched. These flaps here, I did forget to mention, are you've got your base ones that we've just flipped over. You're going to have to like flip those under as well, which are your main outer bag pieces. If they keep flicking out, don't worry about it. Don't stress over it. So if you're one of these people that like to put a bit more bling on, you can work out which is your front and which is your back. I'm going with this as my front, and we're just going to add the handmade label or business tag or whatever. So I'm going to fold mine in half and just give it a good crease at the bottom. It doesn't matter where you actually put it, it's totally up to you. I'm just going to pop a crease in that so we can identify where the center is, kind of. So that's kind of my center there. Now, personally, you can put it there if you want to. You can put it there. If you're going to put it close to the top or a bit further down, I'm going to pop it there on the side because I know where the top stitching finishes is where the side panels will be. So I'm going to go around about there and probably around about an inch up. I'm putting that one on as well. So let me just get my marking tools. I'm using the pen that Laura sells from Mormino. It's just the vinyl marking tool. It doesn't actually it can be wiped off. So I know my bag edges will start here, my sides. So I'm going to go up an inch and just reassess. I'm going in an inch from the edge here, just to see if I like the look of that. I might actually go up just slightly bit more, so I'm going to go an inch and a quarter. Becky is having a brain fog here, so I'm just going to bring that round. Okay, so my edge of the rule is on where the top stitching finishes on there. Going an inch in. I know the D on the handmade where it goes into the M is the center. And I'm just going to eyeball that. Pop a dot where the number 2 is. So I know that's where my center is. And then I'm just going to get my washer. Work out where the prongs go into that washer. So my washer my actual sign prongs go into the 2 slits on either end of the washer. So that's the 2 on the end here and 2 on the end here. Take that off. And there is 2, 4, 6, 8. So this center bar here is my center. I'm just going to pop that over the center, over that dot. Make sure that's nice and straight before I do anything else. That will mean that I'll probably make sure it's nice and straight because this is for my sister. I've got to send this to Australia and it's going to cost a fortune. Right, so I've drawn on the 2 slits where the actual handmade sign goes in. I'm going to get a craft knife, just a sharp standing knife. I'm just going to cut each individual slit, but I'm only cutting the slits itself, not the marking that we made for the center. And make sure you go through all the way. You don't want them any bigger than the slits as well. I'm going to rub off that in a minute if I can see it through this. But I'm just going to pop the handmade sign through. I've just got a few markings, so I'm just going to pull that out and rub those away slightly. Okay. Pop that in, make sure it's nice and straight, flip it over. You can pad this out if you want to. So if you're using Laura's stick and sew or if you're using Decaville, you will need a piece of fleece or something to go over the top of these. If you're using the fleece, you don't need anything to go over the top, but you basically just cut a piece of fleece out, put two slits either end, pop that over, and then pop the washer on. And then you're going to need something to stick over the top of this. So I use duct tape or gaffer tape, is it called, or whatever. But I just use some form of tape to cover up the prongs. Let me just get a little bit of duct tape. Yeah, this is duct tape. Just stick it over so it doesn't rip into the fabric when it comes to your lining. Okay. And then I'll move on to the next part. So the next part is we're going to bring the two sides together. So we're moving on to this section here. So you're going to line up the two outer edges. And you're going to clip those together. Okay, and join this one here as well. Oh, that's broken. Yep. Okay, so this could get in the way. Doesn't matter if you have to squash it down a bit when you get it onto your sewing machine. But you're going to sew from here down to here, and from here down to this edge here. You're going to do 3/8 of an inch away. You're going to reverse your stitches at the start and at the end. You're not sewing these parts here. That's the inverted curves. I'm going to knock my stitch length. Oh no, I'm going to knock my stitch length to a 2.4 or 2.5, depending on your sewing machine. So let me just go to a 2.4. Okay, I'm just making sure I'm recording still. Yep. And I'm just going to reverse my stitch at the start and at the end. And like I say, if you have to smooch, hold that and fold that slightly, that base, to get it under your sewing machine a bit better, then do it, because by the time we turn it right side facing out, once the bag's finished, it will flatten itself out anyway. And reverse your stitch at the end. Okay, and then you're going to flip it around and do the other side. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do is, if I just go to, no, wrong camera. Sorry guys, it's totally different software than what I normally use when I do the lives. So I'm not used to it. Right, so you're going to actually trim away some of this excess seam allowance. Now, you're going to leave around about 1/2 inch of the seam allowance full at the top and the bottom of your seam. And there's a reason for that is if your seam allowance are cut really small when you join it to other seams, i.e. here, your jump stitch, you might get quite a large jump stitch in the center. So it's best to always leave 1/2 inch of top and the bottom of any seams that you do. So I'm just gonna trim it back by half the amount, but going at an angle at the top and the bottom. So as you can see, I've got a little bit cut off there and a bit there. You just do the same with this side as well. It just means we can open them up and butterfly them, and it means you won't get any jump stitches. Okay. So the next thing you're going to do is working on the base side, you're going to open up that butterfly that you've just left on the side and open up your base. Match up the edges, have a clip on the center just to keep that butterfly open. And what will happen is you'll get this little bit that sticks out. That's what it's meant to do. So just clip along that edge, making sure it's opening up here as well. Okay. Then you're going to flatten this part out. And where it actually opens up is where you're going to actually top stitch. Not top stitch, you're actually going to sew. Oh, let me refocus that. Oh, okay, so you're basically going to stitch off and then on and then off again and then across. And you know where this little flappy bit that sticks out, that's how you identify that you've got 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm just going to do the other one before I go to the sewing machine. Okay, and same with this one. Just fold it down. You might have a tag, just be careful that you're not ripping it out or anything. And you're just going to sew 3/8 of an inch away and you're going to reverse your stitch at the start and at the end. This camera. Keeping the stitch length that you just had it on, which is 2.4 or 2.5. I'm going to go off and then on. I might reverse back a bit because I don't think I did enough reversing at the start. And where that center is, where that side seam is, and that butterfly, once I've sewn over it, I do actually 9 times out of 10 go over it again. So I'll just reverse my stitch at the start and at the end. I'll just repeat that section. Make sure that butterfly stays open, unlike that wanted to come up. Oh, forgot to reverse. I'm just going to go from the center again because I forgot to reverse and I just don't want to. Okay, and then we go to that camera. So you should have sewn over those on both sides. I've got a bit of a bird's nest there. I'm just going to ignore that. That's me not reversing. You're going to leave these parts attached because this will help stick down the plastic canvas when we come to put that in on the final stages. So you're just going to poke out those corners so they're nice and got a nice crisp finish. Please don't look at the nails. I've got such artist nails at the moment. They're really painty because of all the work that I'm doing at college. Okay, and then you're just going to give that a nice crease at the bottom, and then your outer bag is actually complete. So that's that. I'm going to stop recording now. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next section. So we're on page 6 now. I'm going to do the inside zip pocket, and then we'll move on to finishing the inside zip pocket. Now, this is where you can actually have the bag if you want to. Personally, if you're a beginner or you're finding the bag a bit tricky already, leave your turning gap as what is in the pattern. But if the turning gap in the bag is through the lining on the base. So if I open this up and get rid of all of this, your turning gap will be on the actual base itself. Now, if you are one of those people that don't like seeing the turning gap and you're not struggling whatsoever, you can do the turning gap like the Walk With Me bag. So the Walk With Me bag is where we turn it through the, let me just put this in so it doesn't irritate anybody else. The Walk With Me bag is you turn it through the inside pocket. So if I just go to the overhead camera, this one. So with the inside pocket turning gap method, the bottom edge of your 2 lining pieces to the wrong side, you will fold up by 3/8 of an inch and give that a really good press. And you do that now if you wanted to have the turning gap via the inside zip pocket. Now, I'm going to treat this zip pocket as I have taught in the pattern. However, I will talk you through the methods if you want in the turning gap for the inside zip pocket. So with the pattern, you're going to find the center top of your lining bottom. So my lining bottom is the narrowest straight edge, but one of the longest straight edges, not this bit here. So we're going to find the top and the center top, fold that in half. And it's just one of the inside, bottom, inside, what's it called, lining pieces. And you're just going to snip it into that just within the seam allowance. You're going to get one of your pocket lining pieces. I'm just going to quickly press this because I don't think my iron must have been hot enough yesterday. That's it. Wasn't hot enough, I don't think, my iron. And then you're going to find one of the centers of this long edge here, or one of the long edges. So the edge that if you are doing the turning gap through the pocket, your folded edge will be on this side, and you'll be finding the center of this bottom, of this top edge here. But we are just doing the normal pocket without no turning gap. Okay, so from that mark there, you're going to measure down 1¼ inches. I'm just going to put that on a dominant mark on my mat. So my dominant mark is there, so you can see where my actual half is. And you're going to measure down 1¼ inches from the edge. And then you're going to line up that top, not if your folded edge, if you're doing your folded edge bit, your turning gap will be at the bottom. But you're going to match up that mark there to the center mark. Now, if you don't know my general rule, is my number 6 on this quarters rule is always where my center is. So I'm just going to pop that mark right next to there. I'm just going to pin this into place. Okay, and then from that center mark, you can just barely see that center mark. I'm just going to draw it on. From that center mark, we're going to measure down 1 inch, keeping the 6 as my center. And then I'm going to make a section, an 8-inch line. So 4 inches from this side and then 4 inches on that side. Okay, I always like to just draw 2 little lines going down. And then from that drawn line there that we've just done, we're going to measure down, and we're going to measure down 3/8 of an inch. And then draw another straight line. Okay, from those 2 outer lines, you're going to measure in 1/2 inch and draw 2 vertical lines. And then we're just going to randomly try and find the center of that rectangle, that inner rectangle there. So I'll just kind of eyeball that. I'm just going to zoom in so you guys can see. Okay. And then just from this outer edge here, we're just going to match up that center line into a triangle on each side. Okay, so these markings that we've done in the center are not going to be sewn whatsoever. They're just cutting marks. And this outer edge, this long rectangle outer edge, is where we're going to sew. So you're going to sew using a stitch length of a 2.4. Now, when you come closer to the edges, like down this side and down this side and these corners, you can reduce your stitch length. So it means that your needle will finish dead on that mark in those corners there. Or you can just slow down and make sure you twist the outer I'm going to say knob on the sewing machine, the hand crank. So it basically definitely lands in those parts there. I'm going to use standard stitch length, and we're going to sew all the way around on that outer mark. Doesn't matter where you start off, it's totally up to you. I've always said this bit is a personal preference. I generally don't start off anywhere all the time. I randomly pick. You need to slow down and remove those pins when you get close to them. So I can do one more stitch. But just make sure your needle is fully down when you actually come to pivot. Got add some jump stitches there, but I haven't. It's just the actual thread. This one. Right, so you would have sewn around. You're going to get something to cut into that centre. I'm just going to use my rotary cutter. And I'm just going to start off a slit in that centre. So I've got a nice little slit. I've not cut it into those 2 lines. I'm going to get my scissors and cut to the peaks of the triangle. And And then I'm going to snip right into those corners, down those triangles. I'm not cutting into the fabric, into the sewn line. I'm just cutting it into the fabric in those corners. Okay, and then you're going to get your iron. I'm going to zoom out a bit now so you can see this bit. Excuse the worn mat. First of all, I'm just going to crease, finger press, crease those. Doing this will help with passing it through, and it means that you have a nicer finish at the end. Okay, and then you're just going to the wrong side of the lining bottom piece, you're going to bring the pocket lining to the right side and roll those seams. And the ideal is you don't want any creases here. But you're going to press it from this side because ideally you don't want any creases on your actual lining side. You just don't mind it on your actual pocket lining piece if you can't get rid of some of the creases. I'm just going to press that top row there first. Okay, give that a nice good press, and then you're going to do, so I can roll that seam a little bit there. I'm not liking how much that's pressed. I'll repress that. Don't know if you noticed, my actual lining on my pocket is a different colour. I'm going through all my scrap fabric at the moment for all my pocket linings. Okay, so you should have a letterbox like that. I'm going to stop recording so you guys can record. Right, okay, so I've just gone ahead and ran some quarter tape on the top and the bottom on the lining pocket of that little pocket hole. I'm just going to peel off the, with me, change my mic. Okay, can you hear me? Yes, I'll take that. Can people hear me?
Yeah.
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 All right, okay, I'm going to mute you all now. It just said battery low. Okay, so you've got the top and the bottom quilter's tape. I'm going to get my inside zipper. Make sure you can open it before you go ahead. Doesn't matter which side your pull is on, that's totally up to you. I'm a lefty to righty person, and I know my sister is a lefty to righty person. I'm going to pop this right side of the lining facing down onto the actual zipper, which is right side facing up. And you want the coil to be in the center. And you're going to stick that down if it wants to stick, depending on if it's sticky or tape. Okay, if you are sticking it down, always make sure if you've got a metal stopper, it's really far away from when you're stitching. If it's quite close, just try and trim it off as close as you can to that stopper so that metal piece isn't on the actual zip. Okay, so we're going to sew 1/8 of an inch all the way around. I tend to actually, when I'm top stitching this part, tend to start off in this corner here because it's the corner that's not seen the most when you're opening up the bag to do the inside lining. So I'm going to sew 1/8 of an inch all the way around and reverse my stitch. And I'm using a standard stitch length, and that will be a 2.2, 2.4, 2.5. Making sure I'm definitely recording. Yeah. Reverse your stitch at the start and at the end. You will need your needle down when you come to move your zipper pull. Just going to open up mine. And if you're like me, you need to get your quick unpick. Pick to hook on to the zipper. Why I just don't use my zipper for it's unbelievable. Okay. Make sure your needle is down and then just repeat the same process of closing up the zipper. If your teeth don't lock, you won't have this major problem. I mean, as in your zipper pulls sometimes have a locking mechanism inside them. Because I'm using an actual dressmaking zip. If it's like a zip that you're installing yourself, a zipper pull onto a coil, you won't have that lock that's in the middle and like mine kept jamming then. And then just reverse your stitch. Right, okay, so you're going to trim off the excess, and if you've got a bird's nest, you need to trim that back. Just gonna those. And I'm just going to trim this back. Like so, you can singe that if you want to. I tend to find that it's not needed. You can use some fray check if you want to, totally up to you. So your fold, if you're doing your inside zip pocket as a turning gap, your fold will be at the bottom of this one. You grab your other pocket lining piece and make sure there's a fold on one of the long edges if you are doing a turning gap. I'm not. You pop those right sides together and make sure the two folded edges are on this side here. But as I'm not, it doesn't matter. And then if you are doing the turning gap on your inside pocket, you will only pin this side, and this side, and you will only sew those three sides together. You will leave your pocket turning gap completely open at the bottom. Now, because I'm not doing the turning gap on the actual inside zip pocket, I'm actually going to pin all the way around and sew all the way around. So I'm just going to get the pins and pin all those layers together. Make sure you're not catching the body lining piece. We're just catching the two pieces of pocket lining. And then just a few pins at the bottom as well. Okay, so you're going to sew, just make sure that's perfectly neat. Personally, I like to sew from this side. Move the body lining piece as I go. I'm going to sew all the way around, reversing my stitch at the start and at the end, and then go across that top bit there, which could be a bit of a struggle, but you will get there. And then you're going to reverse your stitch at the end. So I'm using a standard stitch length from a 2.4. Don't forget to take those pins out. Now, some people like to use a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance on this bit, 3/8 of an inch, totally up to you. Personally, I like to use a 3/8 of an inch because I do, if anybody's like me, you overfill your inside zip pockets with your keys or something, and my keys are quite heavy, so just an extra precaution that you've got a few extra strands of fabric just for that extra precaution. As you can see, I'm just moving the pocket lining around and then just flipping the main body out of the way. Okay, and the final stretch. And then you're going to reverse your stitch at the end. Right, so if you have done your pocket lining as your turning gap, you wouldn't have sewn across the bottom part, this part here, because that's where your folds are. So you would have reversed your stitches at the start and at the end on the two sides. So if you guys want to go ahead and do that, that's start recording. Oh, I just wanted to do that. Hi, Mom, I'm on camera. Right, okay. So the next thing we're going to do is sort out the outside zipper. Um, my if you bought the hardware kits, mine's just slightly different. I forgot to grab one of the squared ones, but it's the same process. So you're going to take your screw out if the screw's been implemented in, and make sure your zipper's at the correct size. So your zipper should measure uh 15 inches. So I personally singe with a lighter the two ends, stop it from fraying. You can use spray check, you can use clear nail varnish, totally up to you. And then you're just going to bring in the two edges into the center where the zip is on the back, and you're going to pop this into the actual zipper end, and you're going into that tube. Now I've got a little bit of a lip. Now if I just zoom in, oh, wrong way. We're getting motion sickness there. I've got a little bit of a bit that's kicking out. Always make sure all your pieces are inside. So get your tailors all and just poke it up. You want it right up there. So just make sure it's a bit symmetrical before you go in with the tailors all. So just refocus. Okay, so with my tailors all, I'll just with my tailors all where the actual hole is, just get it into that hole and break those teeth around that coil area. And then you're just going to screw this in. Some people like to put a bit of glue in there. I just think the screw is enough in that section. I really could do with my magnetized ones arriving. They sent me the wrong ones, so I've had to buy some new ones. Order some new ones, other ones. Okay, and then just tighten that up completely, and then that shouldn't come out whatsoever. And I've forgotten to put my zipper on. So I'm just going to take that bit off and do it again. Always make sure you've got your zipper pull on before you put that on. So install your zipper pull. Let me go this side. Twisted, twisted, twisted. Okay. Always make sure your zipper pull is on before you go ahead. and install that zipper end. Okay, you're going to open up those teeth at that end there, and then I'm just going to go ahead and install that. And the reason why where this part was, some of my teeth are slightly broken from when I stabbed it. So just if you accidentally do that, make sure you install the zipper pull on the end where you did accidentally put this on first. That was so neat as well. Okay, so you got your zipper on, just neaten that up if you need to, twist it round, make sure it's nice and neat. So I'm just going to pull down my zipper a bit, and we are working on this part here. So we're going to make a T shape in your zipper, and that's this part here of the zipper. So if you want to, some people measure down. I just like to use my cutting mat. So I tend to like to fold it where the centimetre mark is. So that's around about 3/8 of an inch down, pinch it around about there and fold. So all I'm doing is taking that edge there and bringing where my thumb kind of nail ends here is where I'm actually just getting my finger underneath, twisting that round. So that makes a little pleat there. And then I'll go to my sewing machine and sew over that, or you can hand sew it if you want to. What it looks like underneath is just folded underneath. So if I just fold that again, it should be slightly folded on a 45-degree angle there. So if I just pop a pin in that, okay, so I've just folded it there. And then what you need to do is bring up your zipper slightly, pinch it there, finger underneath, and fold it over. Now this side, whichever side you do last, will be the one that you have to keep undoing because you want it to be kind of near enough spot on as the same as this one. So I'm just going to fold that again. Yeah, that's about right. And then I'll just add in another pin here. Like so. Right, so I'm going to sew about a quarter of an inch away from, oh, I'm going to sew about a quarter of an inch away from this edge and go over. So I'm going to start off on the teeth, get my tailors all underneath, help push this through my sewing machine and reverse my stitch a few times. And then I'll do the same on this side, but make sure you remove these pins as you go. Let me just zoom out. Camera. Put my needle down about a quarter of an inch away. I've got my actual tailors all underneath. Just gonna drop my pedal and get my first stitch down, and I'm gonna take that pin out, holding that into place with my finger at the moment. I've not got my foot on the pedal whatsoever. My feet are away from my presser foot, my actual foot down at the bottom on the floor. And I'm just gonna do one, and I know that's caught now underneath, and then I'm just gonna reverse, up, reverse, and then I'll go forward again. You can hand sew that bitch if you want to. It's totally up to you. Personally, some people like hand sewing it. I just think it takes a bit of a long-winded process. And what you're after is sewing it so it can't come undone and you've gone over that. So you're going to do the other one. Doesn't matter how it looks because it's going to be in your seam allowance anyway. So get that pin out. Oh, and then reverse. Okay, so you've got that folded. I'm just going to quickly press this because it keeps kinking. You can press the zippers because they're nylon. My iron is off anyway, but it's just going to flatten that out. And you will have those folded over, so when I pull this, my zipper pull won't come off at all. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is pop this to one side and get my lining pieces, my zipper bridge pieces. So you've got your two lining pieces with your interfacing attached, and then your two main outer zipper bridge pieces with your interfacing attached. Okay, so first of all, you're going to get your quarters rule and a pen. And after we've done this part, we are going to call it a day for today. But I'll let people ask any questions on this next bit because then we'll move on to the slightly harder stuff tomorrow. Okay, so I've kind of leveled up everything here. I'm just going to measure in 1/4 of an inch on each of the ends. I'm just going to draw down those. Oh, was working. Okay. Okay, so your two lining pieces, which are your should be cotton fabric, you're just going to fold these in, one of these ends in, so but make sure that you don't fold the same sides. So I'm going to go for this side, and you're going to fold it in 1/4 of an inch and press it with your sewing machine. I mean with your iron. So let me just press those. So 1/4 of an inch, where that marking is, you should be folding it. Give that a good press. It helps flip it over and just give it another press as well. Okay. And the same with this one here as well. Okay, so you should have your two lining pieces folded. We need them to be folded on your main outer. Now, if you are using cotton as your main outer, you can go ahead and press those. But because we are using PU, well, I'm using PU, I'm going to have to run quarters tape on those parts there. Okay, what I also tend to like to do is make sure wherever I'm folding it, it matches up to the lining pieces. So as you can see, I've brought these edges together. I'm going to peel off this backing tape. I've really cut my nails in the past day. And where I fold it, I want it to match the lining fold. So, and then I'm just going to pop a clip in that as well, so it stops it from coming under. And then the same with this one as well. Okay, so the next thing you're going to do is get one of your main outer pieces, not your lining pieces, and you're going to flip that right side together. And then technically you can do the marking on this side if you want to, where the 1/4 of an inch is. I'm just going to get this pen and just mark 1/4 of an inch. I'm just going to do it lightly on the one edge, like so. Zoom in a bit. Okay, so I've got like a mark in there. And the reason for that is that's where my tape, so my quarters tape's going to go to. And I'm running it along the right side of the zipper bridge, along one of the edges, long edges. Okay. And then you're going to get your zip. I would neaten it off if there's like pieces of thread, so I'm just going to quickly trim any pieces of thread. Okay, and then you're going to peel off that backing tape. Okay, so keeping your zipper pull closed, you're going to flip this over so it's right side facing down. And this top edge here is going to match up with that. Where this teeth are here, that's going to go just on that mark in there. And you're going to match up the edge along that raw edge. And move that clip down a bit. Okay, so you've got that. Now I'm going to open up my zip so it's just out of the way and I can work better with it being open. Then you're going to get some more quarters tape, and this time you're going to run the quarters tape off this part here over that coil where it's folded and to where that folded edge here is. And then you're just going to run a bit of quarters tape down this edge here. Okay. Then you're going to grab one of your lining pieces. Okay, and then you're just going to peel off these pieces of backing tape. Okay, so right side of the lining to the right side of the PU, making sure your folded side is matching up where this folded side is on here. You're going to match up these parts here. Stick that down and run it across that bit there. Going to move that clip and just clip both of those pieces together. And then you're going to sew on this marking here, so it doesn't matter which side you do. That's the reason why we just draw on all the pieces, so it doesn't matter which side. And you're going to sew, reversing stitching at the start. You're going to sew to 3/8 of an inch away from this edge. And then you're going to sew all the way down. Now, if you want to, go ahead, use your zipper foot if you need to. I personally just keep my walking foot on. I'm going to use the standard stitch length of a 2.4. Make sure you definitely reverse your stitch at the start and at the end. And this is the only short side you should be sewing on. 1/8. And then when you come to the folded part, at the other short end, just reverse your stitch to finish it off. So I've just finished in on my 2 folds. I'm going to reverse my stitch and cut my thread. So you should be left with something like this. So I've got a bit of zipper showing here. I will trim that back and then just get my lighter on it. So I'm just gonna trim back what it was. I'm just gonna get my lighter. And that will basically just seal that bit there for me. I'm going to, you feel where the coil is. You don't want to cut the zip at all. So I'm just going to trim it at an angle from where that coil is on that bit there. And then I'm just going to trim it at least 1/8 or a bit less closer to that seam, that sewn line there. Then you're just going to get your finger inside and pull that zip part out, undo that clip, and bring them right side facing out. If you want to, you can press it, but as long as you press it on the actual lining side, if you're using a lining that's cotton fabric. And I'm just going to clip the two raw edges together. Shouldn't have to clip if you're using some really good interfacing. Even the Fuse It non-woven is really good interfacing. You might find that some of the cheaper brands, hemline one, will crease, so it's best to press it. Okay, just make sure that's neat. Okay, and then all I'm going to do now is top stitch 1/8 of an inch away from this edge here to about 1/8 of an inch away from that curve, that straight line there, and then sew across there, and then 1/8 of an inch up, and then close these two folded parts over. And that shows up a bit better. Going to knock my stitch length up to a stitch length number 4 because I'm top stitching now. I don't reverse when I'm top stitching a zipper, only on the folded edge. So that's the last edge that we will finish on. Okay, and then you should have one of your zipper bridges attached. I'm just going to talk you through attaching the next zipper bridge side. Always close it up, your zipper, for the next bit here. Okay, and then you're going to get your main outer bridge piece, and you're going to pop that right side facing up. You can measure in, I'll measure in just for the benefit. Okay. And then you're just going to run quarters tape along that edge there. And away from that edge, that marking, shall I say, not that edge. You're going to peel off the backing tape. And then this time, rather than just having the zip, you're going to have this zip bridge attached. You're going to, oh, I've stuck that on the wrong side. I knew I had. Questioning it. That's a good thing about this tape. Put your tape on this edge here, because when we flip this over, your fold will be on this side. If I was to do what we did there, I couldn't have done it. I would have had to turn it round, and then my fold would have been on the wrong side. So always run the zipper, the quarters tape on the bottom row of the second bridge. So I'm just going to eyeball that. Now you can flip this over and your coil will be stuck just after that mark. I like to just stick it slightly into place and then just flip it over and then realign it back into position. So that's it. Cool. Okay, undo that zipper pull. And then you can realign that better if it's not straight. Okay, and then you're just going to repeat the same process what you did last time. Run some tape. Move that down a bit. Run some tape along this edge, going off the zipper coil where it's folded, and along that edge there. And then you just repeat the same process, stick the lining into place, and then top stitch, sew it all into place, and then top stitch. And then I'll meet you back once the zipper bridge is complete. So I'll let you guys catch up. Okay, so to finish off for today, you should have your zipper bridge looking like this, where you've got it lining on the back, and it should have two sides. And then tomorrow we will just basically carry on with the rest of the bag, which is attaching the full lining together, turning the bag right side facing out, and adding the grommets.